Chumash. We're doing the sixth aliyah for Parshas Boy, in the Chayinu, page 42. It was at midnight, and Hashem struck down every firstborn in the land of Egypt. From the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on the throne, till all the way down to the firstborn of the captive in the dungeon, Asher Beis Habar, who's in the dungeon, as well as every firstborn animal. Rashi Chavtes. It was at midnight, and Hashem. And Hashem. We had that before. Every place where it says and Hashem, it's implying Hashem and his Beis Din. His, I don't know, the angel of death, maybe. The Punisher, and the punishing energy. That the Vav is a additive, addition, that means Hashem and someone else, meaning the other prosecutorial energy. He struck down every firstborn. He even struck down firstborn nations. If the UN was in Egypt and the ambassador of whatever nation had his firstborn, they would die also. Visiting Mesopotamia,
We also learned that the Pharaoh was not a firstborn.
Actually, we're about to say Mibchar Pare, from Pharaoh's firstborn. Pharaoh, Rashi says, too was a firstborn.
Mm-hmm. Who was?
Pharaoh was, Rashi says right now. Look.
Impossible. Rashi is contradicting.
But Rashi says he alone, out of all the firstborns, was allowed to live from the firstborns.
Wow. I don't agree.
And about him it says, it is for this purpose, however, that I retained you. God says later, somewhere.
Say specifically.
Earlier, 9:16, chapter 9:16, that because of this, I will retain you to show you my strength. Where? By the Red Sea. Got it?
I don't agree. We have to be across the board.
Why are you so much?
You're going to include the firstborn and the prisoner. You got to include Pharaoh in that possibility. And he was not a firstborn.
Why wasn't he a firstborn? Why not? Why are you saying he wasn't?
Because he didn't die. He didn't die.
Rashi just said the reason he didn't die was because God wanted to show him.
I respectfully disagree with Mr. Rashi.
Okay, fine. Noted for the record. Ad B'char Shvi, to the firstborn of the prisoner. Why were they killed? Because they were rejoicing, even though they were in prison as well. Like they were also in a bad state. They would rejoice to their God about Israel's misfortune. That they were slaves, so they got punished for that. Also, they had to die so that they shouldn't say, "Oh yeah, our Mesopotamian God is the one who killed the Egyptian firstborns." Like if the Mesopotamians are in prison, I don't know anybody else from that era, it must be. Which, of course, I held back yesterday, but I'm going to allow myself to quote from my culture references. Do you mean to tell me that some Babylonian god is going to descend upon New York City? No, Sumerian. So they shouldn't say a Sumerian god was, was the one they had to kill. They also had to be punished to show that they're also being struck by the god of the Jews. The maidservant's firstborn was also included here because they actually were higher up in the food chain of the pecking order of the, they're not as lowly as the captive, because the Torah here is saying we're going from the most noble firstborn, Pharaoh's, crown prince, and the firstborn of the captives, but anything in between, which is all the middle class and everybody else. Okay, Lamed. Pharaoh rose in the night. He and all his servants and all of Egypt. For there was a great cry in Egypt. Ain bias hashin shameis, for there was no house that did not have a dead person. Yochim Pares rose. He rose from his bed, Lila, in the night, and not as the way of kings at 3 hours of the day. Not like the kings at 3 hours of the day. Who tchila, he first and afterwards his servants. This teaches us that he himself went around to his servants' houses and made them get up. So he got up himself early in the middle of the night, and he was rousing his ministers. Come on, get up. We got to deal with this. There's no house that had no dead in it. Meaning, what does it mean? Not everybody seemingly had a firstborn living at home. Maybe what if someone's firstborn was in the University of Cairo or something? The University of Giza. Where they're not at home. There's no firstborn to strike. Everybody had someone dead in the house. If there was a firstborn, legitimate firstborn, he would die. If there wasn't, the eldest person, the most senior person in the house died. And King David says, I too, for my part, will make him a great person. Bechar can also mean, we said, the greatest. Davar acher.
There's a comment here on the Rashi that's confusing here. He's saying the Mitzri women were unfaithful.
I didn't read it. I have to read it. Let me read it. Another explanation. Why does it say that every single house had? You get the question, how could every house have a firstborn? Not everybody has a firstborn living at home. So answer one is, yeah, if there wasn't a firstborn, the senior most person would die.
No, it's
so every house had someone die.
Petra Kol Rechem. That's the firstborn. And if it's not Petra Kol Rechem, I don't know what they're talking about.
Here's the thing. Yeah, I want to get into this, but at the very least,
it's
Rashi,
simple Hebrew.
Rashi's a
Hebrew.
smart man. And whatever we're thinking of, we have a good question. For the most part, if it's a question, Rashi answers it or at least precludes it. And your question, he says, you have to understand, there's a series of books of what's bothering Rashi. That's always Rashi doesn't tell you usually the question, sometimes, but usually not. He just goes into like a statement. The statement is to answer a obvious or either a word, unusual word, or a obvious question. So what's the obvious question? What's the obvious question of the statement? How could you say every house had a dead person? If this is the plague of the firstborn, it wouldn't mean every house. It's only a house that has a firstborn.
Yeah, a house that has to have a woman in it.
But we didn't say, when I say woman, we're not, you're skipping ahead. We said this is the plague of the firstborn. The people that die here are the firstborn. Right. Yet the verse says every house had at least one dead person.
Fine.
Wait, why? Maybe there wasn't
What's the problem.
Isn't logical to say that not every house had a firstborn living there? Let's say the firstborn was grown and had his own family.
Well, then you don't know how power put the put together.
No, that's not the point. I don't get powerful. The question. The simple shot question. So Rashi answers. There was two things. If there was a firstborn, it was the plague of the firstborn. If there was no firstborn, then it was the next most senior person that died. And Rashi, not like you said, Peterechem Bechor, not that. He says, he proves some Tehillim, Bechor could also mean, it's a double entendre. It could mean firstborn, and it could mean the most exalted person. That's it. End of the answer. Second explanation. The Mitzri women were unfaithful to their husbands, and they bore children from other unmarried men. And thus, there was more than one firstborn per house, because they had one firstborn from the master of the home, but they had children they didn't admit. They came from other relationships, so there was plenty of firstborns to go around.
No, indeed, you're redefining firstborn as coming from males. No.
Yes, 100%.
It's the one who opens the womb. That's what it means. To me.
Alan, you have to. You're saying statements that are a point, but they're not fully. It's not a full like essay on it. It's like one statement.
You're going to read the seventh mitzvah, the seventh aliyah tomorrow, and what you're going to see is you're going to see Petra Kol Rechem. It's all about that. Read it tomorrow. You'll see for Bechor.
You have to see. Okay, we'll see. I hear you. Typically, in Judaism, at least I know, the Bechor goes after the father. Peter Kol Rechem.
Not so. That's what you're going to read tomorrow. Is exactly the opposite from a woman.
No,
the female.
I think you're having.
Alan, could you temporize just a little bit? The rabbi is our teacher. You know, you're talking to him like he's some sort of. You're on the same level, and
I'm not on
the
like
same
level. Not on the same level, but I'm just
saying. Peter Korechem, I think, is a qualifier for when it's a firstborn child that becomes liable for the 5 coins or the firstborn animal. Yes, the qualifier has to be the first of the mother. But
this I'm sorry, Rabbi. It's not. This isn't like a yeshiva argument, Alan.
Right.
All right, I hear you, but I'm still telling you what I think, and I'm going to shut up right now.
Okay, moving along.
Pharaoh called for Moshe and Aaron in the night. And he said, get up and leave from among my people. Gam atem, gam bnei Yisrael, both you and all the children of Israel. And go serve the eternal as you have said. Pharaoh called for Moshe and Aaron in the night. This tells us that he went around the entrances to the city and cried out, where does Moshe live? Where does Aaron live? Meaning he was humble. He was brought to his groveling. He didn't even know where Moshe was. He had to go searching for Moshe. Gam, page 44, Gam atem, both you, the adult men. Atem is plural, masculine tense. Gam b'nei Yisrael, also you, the children of Israel, meaning also means the young ones. Refers to the young ones. Ulechu ivdu es Hashem kedaberchem, and go serve Hashem as you have said. Everything as you have said, not as I have said. Botol lo yashaleach. Annulled is what I have said. I will not release Israel. Annulled is what I said when I said, who is going to go? Annulled is what I said. I'm canceling my order. Your sheep, goats, and cattle shall remain behind. Anything I said canceled. Everybody can go. Lamed Beis. Gam seimchem, gam bekarchem, kechu kasher dibartem, v'lechu, v'rachtem, gam esi. Everybody should go and pray for me as well. Rashi, berachtem means you shall bless me. Here means pray for me that I should not die, for I am a firstborn. Because he noticed all the firstborns are dead besides him, so he's worried that he's going to have the last. He'll be the last one to die, the firstborn. So he said, pray for me that I should be spared. Lamed Gimel Vateches Ag Mitzrayim Alaam. Egypt urged the people on Lamar L'Shalcham to hurry to send them from the land. Ki Amru Kulanu Mesim, for they said we are all dying. Kulanu Mesim, we are all dying. They said, what is happening is not like Moshe decreed. He said this is the plague of the firstborn to die. But here we see ordinary non-firstborn sons are dying. 5 or even 10 in one house, meaning they did not realize. Rashi explained why there was so much death beyond the firstborns. Because either, number one, no firstborn, someone's got to die, the next oldest person dies. Or they didn't know, or they didn't want to admit to themselves how the women of Egypt were so unfaithful that they were bearing children from multiple men, and therefore there was multiple firstborns that they were unknown, that weren't designated by the by their birth certificate as firstborn, but they actually were firstborn by the father.
It says that only Hashem knows those, right?
Okay, yeah.
That only Hashem knows those.
Right. Lamed Dalid Visa Amis B'Tzeketem Yachmads. I think the wife would know also, by the way. She might know also. She's doing it.
Yeah.
The people took their dough. Pasuk Lam Daled. The people carried their dough before it had leavened. With their leftover food, their doggy bags, wrapped up in their clothing on their shoulders. So they took their seder, whatever, leftovers, the brisket, Terem yachmatz, when they're not leavened. They didn't want to leave it. We're going to leave a good brisket. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to go. And not yet leavened, because the Egyptians did not let them wait for it to rise. Okay, famous, right? Interesting. So Mizrahi, which we just get glimpses of from the footnotes here, but Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, one of the biggest commentators on Rashi, super commentators, he says that the mitzvah that year, you couldn't have chametz one day. That night. Hear that? So they were planning on baking bread the next morning. But that bread wasn't allowed to rise due to the being pushed out so quickly. Oh, I'm sorry. They were allowed to bake bread for the journey beyond the first day, and they were allowed to own it. Those prohibitions of not owning it and not eating it for 7 days, chametz, that was for the next years.
Where are you reading that?
This is page 130, footnote 130 on 45. Page 45, footnote 130. Okay, moving on to the next Rashi. Misharesa means leftover food. The leftovers, the matzah and the bitter herbs. Not the meat, because that they can leave over. And then al shechem on their shoulders. Even though they took many animals with them, they preferred to carry the leftover matzah on their shoulders because they cherish God's commandment. So to me, it sounds like they had some good matzah and more. They wrapped it on their shoulder, mitzvah food. They also had some dough that they were planning on baking to bread, but that didn't become bread just because of the urgency.
I don't understand that footnote that you just quoted, where it says that Mizrahi claims that it was totally permissible for them to have the chametz in their possession.
Right, because otherwise, here's the thing. What does it mean they took dough that not yet leavened due to the Egyptians? They wouldn't have taken dough that wouldn't have leavened because they can't have chametz. You're saying the famous thing, why they matzah? Because they were pushed out and they didn't have time, the dough couldn't rise. What do you mean? Therefore, according to what we thought till now, they couldn't have it. They couldn't have chametz then. They couldn't bake dough for chametz.
They could have had chametz because it's not b'chol gabolecha. We're not in the promised land yet.
That's what he's saying. He's saying that the mitzvah of owning chametz, the sin of owning chametz, did not exist yet. And they were allowed to bake bread. They couldn't eat it that day. But first of all, they could eat it the next 6 days that year. And they could have in their possession for sure. It turned out that even the chametz dough could not become chametz because the Egyptians pushed them out. So they didn't have time to bake it properly. It became matzah due to circumstance, not due to command by God.
I mean, chametz by circumstance.
No, it became matzah. It was going to become chametz because they were allowed to have chametz later on. They could for sure own chametz.
They were intending.
The circumstance of the haste made it be baked quickly.
You can have dough that's going to be. You can have dough, can't you? I mean, that's what you need to make matzah.
Yeah, but you can't let it leaven.
Right. So it wasn't leaven.
Why wasn't leaven though? Why? What was the factor? Because there was a kosher supervisor, or because the Egyptian pushed them out? They had to bake it before they had to leave.
So this goes to their intent. They were intending to leaven it. Otherwise,
yeah.
I mentioned it.
But because of the haste, they had to do it.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. They were intending to leaven it, so this is an explanation
of why it wasn't leavened because of the haste. That explains why we say the story.
So the alternate explanation would be it wasn't leavened because they were observing Passover.
That simply should be the only explanation.
Right. Oh, okay. I get it. Okay.
So what's this thing about? We did it because they forced us out so quick. They were going to have chametz. They didn't. And this is why we break the afikomen, the middle matzah. We say this is the bread of affliction. This is the bread of redemption, or whatever. The afikomen, the redemption. The bigger one is the afikomen. And I think it's because on one hand, matzah is the bread of affliction. It represents slavery, what they ate in Egypt. I think, or they actually, according to opinions, they actually had matzah as slave food. It was indicative of slavery as well. But it's also the bread of redemption because God made them go out so quickly. Anyways, okay. Lamed Hey. And this explains. So the reason. Yeah, okay. For Bnei Yisrael, also b'dvar Moshe, the children of Israel did as Moshe said. And asked for the Egyptians for silver and gold, utensils and clothing. Okay, Lamed Hey. Kedvar Moshe said, he had said to them in Egypt, each man should ask his friend for gold and silver utensils. As Moshe said, each man should ask his friend for gold and silver utensils. Okay, yeah, they did that. With smallies and clothing, the clothing was more valuable than the silver and gold. And that's why the verse will, what's later, Acharon Chaviv, what is later in the Pasuk is more cherished. That's why the clothes, I think Egypt was known for silk clothes, I think, something like that. Anyways, move along. Lamed Vav, Hashem made the Egyptians look favorably upon the people. Vayeshilum, and the Egyptians encouraged, they fulfilled the requests. And they thus drained Egypt of its wealth. Rashi, Vayeshilum means they made them take.
We literally took away the whole Egypt.
So again, the way we translate, most commentators believe is the Jews did not ask to borrow. Shoel, they asked to take. And it says Vayeshilum, they even obliged them more than they asked. It says, take more. You want one, take two. Just get out of here.
Yeah.
They emptied out. Lamed Zayin. All right, Lamed Zayin. The children of Israel traveled from Ramses to Sukkot. About 600,000 men on foot, besides the children. Lamed Zayin. From Ramses to Sukkot, there was a distance of 120 mil, which is about 120 miles. 120 kilometers.
How many miles?
A mil is 2,000 cubits, so they traveled 120 times 2,000 cubits. It's roughly, let's say 120, 140, kilometers.
How many kilometers do a mile?
It's, I don't know, not sure. 0.67?
1.6 something.
Where do you see that? Where do you see that distance, Rabbi?
The bottom of 133. A mil is a distance of 2,000 cubits.
By the way, Rabbi, Egypt was most known in ancient times for its great linen.
Linen, right. Not silk, linen, right.
Which was viewed as the fabric of power and purity.
Wow. It was also good probably for the heat, It's very breathable.
They're still selling Egyptian bed sheets. Yeah.
There's still a luxury as Egyptian cotton is a thing.
Cotton, yeah. Or
Egyptian material, textiles, whatever. All right.
Maybe it's cotton.
About 600,000 adult men on foot, besides the children. Lamed Zayin, we did Rashi.
They had to import silks and cottons.
Okay. 20 years old and over as men. That's what we said is 600,000 men, 20 years and older.
You imagine taking Monroe County a whole kilometer away, moving Monroe County maybe to Ontario or something like that. That's what we're talking about here. It's
very far, yeah. Okay, a mixed multitude of people of Lameches. V'gam Eidev Rav Ol Itam. Eidev Rav means a mixed multitude. of people left with the Jews as well. As well as sheep, goats, cattle, a great amount of livestock. Rashi, Erev Rav. This is the time Rashi tells you what it is, so listen well. It means a mixture of people of other nations who converted. Lamed Tes 39. And they baked the dough that they took out of Egypt into matzah cakes, for it had not leavened. For they were driven out of Egypt, and they were not able to dilly-dally. And they did not make provisions for themselves. Ugais matzis, ugais literally means a cake. Hashez charara shamatza, charara, it's a cake of matzah. Batzeg shlehechmetz karimatzah. Dough that is unleavened is called matzah. Basically, Rashi's telling you ugais is the shape, circular, and matzahs is that's unleavened. The gam tzeda layasulam. This is why, by the way, another reason we want to have circle matzahs for the Seder plate, besides that it's shmura, that it's more guarded from leavening, but it says ugais matzahs. You should have they didn't have square matzahs back then.
Normally, cookies, right? So these
Ugai means a cookie, but here it means a circular cake.
A cookie of matzah.
The Gam said Liasulahem. Rashi continues, they did not make provisions for themselves. This tells us the praise of the children of Israel. They did not say, how shall we leave to the desert with no provisions? They trusted God and they went. I remembered for you the kindness of your youth, the love you showed at the time of the wedding.
I figured it out.
You went after me. When you lechtech, you follow me after in the desert. You followed me into the desert, into uncultivated land. And what reward is said there? This is in your Yirmiyahu, Beis 2:2. What was the reward? It continues in the pasuk there in Gimel in Yirmiyahu. You, Israel's holy to Hashem. Meaning another. The reason the Torah is telling you all these details again, we already said they had. I think we said they had no provisions. Yeah, I don't know, we did. Whatever. Why is it telling you the details? To tell you the great merit of the Jewish people. They trusted God without a plan of seeing how they're going to have food in the desert, but they trusted God.
Wow.
Now, the stay of the children of Israel, they dwelled in Egypt. How long? 430 years. Let's see Rashi has to say about this. They had dwelt in Egypt, Rashi, after their other dwellings, they had dwelt as strangers in a land that was not theirs. So it's very subtle language. They dwelled in Egypt after the other dwellings when they were still strangers in unowned land. A total of 430 years. Altogether, counting from Yitzchak till now, was 400 years. Because when Avram had seed, he was the destiny of the Jews being strangers in a land not to theirs was upon Yitzchak when they had their first child, Avram and Sarah, their first child, and plus the 30 years prior when they got the decree, the prophecy and the decree of the covenant of the parts. So you have from the Bris Ben HaBesadim, from the covenant of the parts, when God gave the prophecy and destiny of Abraham's descendants, till now is 430 years. But not actually, you don't take the verse literally, they were in Egypt for 430 years. Rashi, it's impossible to say they're actually in Egypt by themselves. for those 430 years. And he said earlier, but he repeats himself, because we know Moshe's grandfather Kahas was among the 70 people who came down with Yaakov. If you take all the years of Kahas's life, plus his son Amram's life, plus Moshe's life, you don't get anywhere near to 430. And many of those years are overlapped, right? So if Kahas was there at Ellis Island when they came to Egypt, and we know he lived for 137 years, and Amram was 137 years, plus Moshe's 80, you don't get 430. So it must mean it's a different calculation. As Rashi said, it goes back to Yitzchak and even prior to the Bris Ben Abisarim, the covenant of the parts.
Well, Canaan was they were a colony in a sense of
Exactly.
Egypt.
That's why. So Rashi says, thus you do not find the total of 400 years in Egypt after they entered Egypt, and you're forced to say that the forefathers' other dwellings already in the land of Canaan were counted as part of the calculation of sojourning in a foreign land. And even in Hebron, where Abraham Yitzchak had sojourned for a long time, and it says the land of their sojourning which they sojourned. Therefore, you must say that the prophecy, your descendants will be foreigners, begins already at the time that Avram had offspring. And if you count 400 from Yitzchak, you will find from their entering Egypt until they left was only 210 years of actual geographic time in Egypt. And this was one of the things the sages changed for King Ptolemy.
No, that's the key right there.
For who? King what? Where are you reading?
Basically, they added in the verse that the children of Israel had sojourned as strangers in Egypt and the other lands prior. They add that word. They didn't say. They added in the Septuaginta.
They added the phrase for and other lands.
And other lands. The total was 430. That says clear 430, but it's not only Egypt on top of the other lands of our sojourning.
So that leaves unexplained why the term, unexplained by Rashi, why the term Mitzrayim is used here alone. I mean,
so I don't. That's Rashi doesn't explain that, right? I don't know why the Torah isn't.
I mean, you could explain it, narrow straits and all that stuff. But this very specifically says Mitzrayim.
Yeah, I don't know why is again. This is a question, General. Why is the Torah ever ambiguous?
Not even ambiguous. I mean,
or even misleading?
Yeah.
Why is it ever misleading? So we have Torah Shabbal Peh. I don't know why it has to be that way. Mem Aleph.
I guess it's one of many instances we can't take literally, right?
I mean, like I said yesterday, there's so many. The Torah exists on so many planes of study, not just historical or instructional, but also Kabbalistic. So maybe my answer, the little I know, is that Egypt is the prototype of exile. So any other exile is just like appended onto that.
Yeah.
So it's almost included in it.
Right.
Okay. I think also another point is originally it was going to be 430 years in Egypt. It was due to God's grace that the Jews couldn't have survived as a people for that long that God counted earlier sojournings. It was the end of 430 years. And on that very day, all of Hashem's groups left the land of Egypt. This tells us that once the predetermined end of exile came, the prophecy is done. That right away, the 15th of Nisan, came the heavenly angels to Abraham to inform him. I'm sorry. Why is it telling you this very day? Because we know Avram got the news of his child on Nisan, the 15th Nisan, which is counted already that she's going to conceive a child, I guess, that night or something, whatever the case is. And Oh, I take it back. Rashi is the 15th of Nisan. Yitzchak was born. Others argue with that, by the way. I don't know. It was a year later. The 15th of Nisan was the day of the prophecy of the covenant of the parts. The point I'm saying is that the Torah is telling you how God keeps his promise to the second. They will be in slavery for 430 years. It was literally this day in history 430 years earlier.
So it was when Yitzchak was born?
It says here, Yitzchak was born on Pesach.
Okay. Well, that would fit with the...
That's why the Torah is saying it's exact. It's so exact.
Right.
Right. There's a good point also, right. And base, Leil Shimurim Hu. It's a night of anticipation, La Hashem, for Hashem to take them out of Egypt. Let's see, it's right. Hu Alayla Zel Hashem. This is the very night that Hashem had spoken of, Shimurim L'Chobnei Yisrael L'Dereisam, which is protective of the children of Israel throughout the generations. Rashi, Leil Shimurim, a night of anticipation. It's a night that Hashem was anticipating to finish his promise to take them out of Egypt. Hu Alayla Zeh. This is the night for Hashem. This is the night about Hashem said to Avram, Hani Goel Espenech, I'm going to redeem your kids. Shemurim l'chobnei Yisrael. It's also protected for the children of Israel, meaning it's an anticipatory night for God, but it's also protection. It's a double meaning. Shamar means to anticipate, means to protect. It's a day we're protected from all destructive forces. As it says, that God will not allow the destroying angel to plague you. Mem Gimel, Vayimer Shal Moshe v'Aaron, and Hashem to Moshe and Aaron, and Zayis, this is the law of the Paschal offering. Kol ben echel echel boy. No stranger may eat of it. No stranger may eat of it. Mem Gimel. This is the law of the Paschal lamb. On the 14th of Nisan, it was said to them. So now we're telling some more details about the law of the Paschal lamb offering. Call ben Echer, any stranger, meaning anybody whose deeds are estranged from his Father in heaven. You're not just a non-Jew, but even a apostate Israelite is also not allowed to have the Paschal lamb. Mem Daled, every man's slave bought for money. Malta Mesayif to circumcise, and then he can eat it, even though he's quasi-Jewish, but he's allowed to eat the Paschal lamb. Malta says Yechol. When his master is circumcised, then he can eat it. So it actually tells you, interesting, that if you don't circumcise this slave, you can't eat this Paschal lamb. It's not, I mean, when you circumcise him, then he may eat it. You, the master, can eat it. You can't eat it while he doesn't get to eat. You both can't eat it if he doesn't get circumcised. You got to take care of business.
It's like your property. You're responsible.
Interesting. That's the words of Yeshua. Eliezer argues. He says, no, if you don't circumcise your slave, then it doesn't prevent the master eating the Paschal lamb. So who's it saying that he can't eat it, that he can only eat it after circumcision? That is, the servant can only eat it after. It's an argument. Mem hey, but a resident or a hired worker cannot eat it. Means a Gentile resident of the land of Israel cannot eat it. The Sachir, this is a non-Jewish hired worker. Maybe it means so what is it? But it said elsewhere if you're uncircumcised. So we already said clear if you're not Jewish you can't have the Paschal offering. Then what? Then why is it to say again later on in verse 48 that if people that are uncircumcised, which was the non-Jews, they can't eat? It's included already. We know the non-Jews can. So the answer is an Arab. It says Aravi Mo, an Arab who was circumcised, or a Givoni who was circumcised, who are not Jewish, but they do circumcision. They go hire themselves out to the Jewish master. They can't eat the Paschal lamb. My stuff? Yeah. Just put it on the beam. Okay. Thank you. If you want, I'll be on in 5 minutes. Okay, great. You must not take out of the meat of the house. That's I skipped Rashi. Memvav. I skipped the pasuk. You have to eat the meat, the Paschal offering in one group. You must not take any of the meat out of the group nor break any of the bones. It shall be eaten in one house, in one group. That those who are counted as one group of eating should not later make themselves to two groups and divide it. So if you are one neighborhood, block party to eat it, you're gonna eat the lamb, you can't take it back to different houses. You gotta eat all together.
Community.
You would say then, wait a second, you're telling me you can't even go in the same room in Chabad. Let's say we all chipped in for the Paschal lamb. We couldn't have tables on this side and that side. A house, by the way, in those days was one room. We're saying not only do you have to eat in one house, you got to eat at one table. So, but then why say a house? But it says house. Yeah. So he says to tell you that if the group began by eating the Paschal offering in the yard of the house, there wasn't room in the house, they had to eat on the porch or the yard, and it started to rain, then it says then they can't go back into the house to finish it. Tells you on the houses they eat the house or they eat the lamb, which we may deduce that those who eat the Paschal lamb eat in two places. I'm sorry. I take it back. I think it's saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Does it mean one group or one house? Maybe, okay, I made a mistake. You're saying it means one group, but maybe it means one house, and it's telling you that it's about location. You don't have to eat on one table. You could have two tables. But if you eat on the porch, eat on the porch, one location. Now you can't. So maybe it's about not moving the meal inside or outside after you start the meal. Or like we said, it means it's being in one group. So elsewhere, what's the tiebreaker? That we know already. I'm telling you, we know it says elsewhere you could eat the Paschal lamb in houses. There's another verse in verse 7 that says Paschal lamb in houses, implying there's a scenario when you can have two locations for the meal, like rain. So that can't be what it's telling us. So what is it left to say here in verse 46? You got to eat it at one table, one group. This is Gemara.
You can have more than one table.
All right. So that's kind of.
You can have more than one table, right?
No, you can't. I don't know. It's in one
What if you have
group.
too many tables?
One group it means. One group. You can't have two groups in one big room even.
Right. Groups.
So he says to Abayis, you must not take any of the meat out of the house. Again, house means group, he says again. Add some, go to the bottom 50. Add some you must not break any bone of the Paschal lamb. A bone that is fitting to be eaten, such as one that has on an olive-sized piece of meat. It applies the prohibition of breaking a bone. A bone that does not have on an olive-sized piece of meat or marrow, to it does not apply the prohibition of breaking a bone. Don't break any bone. I mean, the bones that have meat on them, then you're not allowed to break them. But if there's no bone, like it's a marrow with no bone, then there's no prohibition of breaking it. Okay, Kol Aldas Yisrael Yasser say Mem Zayin, the entire congregation of Israel shall offer the Paschal lamb, the Pesach.
I'm going back to Mem Zion here now. Rashi ends his commentary saying that those who eat the Pesach may eat it in two places.
I didn't understand. Here's the thing. In general, when you read Rashi, you got to read quickly because there's like run-on sentences. It's like very...
I mean, he's saying in those days they might have eaten it in two places, but you're not.
There's a statement.
Yeah.
There's a statement. In one house, you got to eat it.
Right.
That is an open-ended statement. Does it mean one big house, one big room, eat it? But you can be in different parts of the house. Does it mean, no, you got to stick, you plunk down here, you got to eat here. You can't start and stop. Even if it's raining, you can't go, you can't move. Like, why would people typically want to move? Like, why would you move? In case of rain, you got to move from in the barbecue outside to inside, right?
Yeah.
So what does it mean? Those are the two options. Does it mean you got to bias in a more proverbial sense of group? Or does it mean, does it mean the proverbial sense of a group? Or does it mean the sense of you can't move location?
But it says right here, he may, those who eat the Pesach may eat it in two places. He says it's permitted. Two places.
What?
But Rashi seems to be telling us it's permitted to eat it in two places.
He says he's not sure. He's not sure. Maybe this, maybe that.
Oh, okay.
No. Don't see that. No, here, right.
So he's
Step one.
resolving that issue.
It means, here's Rashi's statement. It means this. You got to eat in one group. Or possibly, maybe it means one location. You can't move.
He's resolving that issue.
He said it can't be option two because there's another verse says locations, implying you can move location. So what are we left with here? One group.
One group. All right.
That's the way it goes. Like says in Rabbi, you must not take any meat of the house, nor break any bone of the Pesach. A bone that is fitting to be eaten, such as one that has on an olive. I said that already. Okay, Mem Zayin. Rashi Mem Zayin, next page. The entire congregation of Israel shall offer the Paschal lamb. Why is this stated? Since regarding the Pesach offered in Egypt, it says a lamb per ancestral house. They had to be counted by eating it by family groups. I might have thought this was a one-time thing. I'm sorry. No. Sorry. Before, okay. It said then, this is a caveat. Back then, it was one lamb per family. Maybe for now on, each family has to have one lamb. It says no. Later on, it can be done with the congregation. You can have your friends and neighbors join in for your lamb. It doesn't have to be one lamb per family. That's why it has this word here. In the future, if a proselyte comes to live with you and wishes to offer a Pesach offering for Hashem, a convert, every male of his household must be circumcised. Then he can draw near to it. Then he'll be like a native of the land. Under no circumstances may an uncircumcised man eat it. He will offer a Pesach for Hashem. From these words alone, I might have thought that whoever becomes a proselyte should offer a Paschal sacrifice, a Pesach sacrifice immediately. I might have thought, call Miskayer, whoever converts. Maybe it sounds like a weird thing. If you become a convert, you got to, in February, you got to bring a Paschal lamb. No, it qualifies. It means like the native. A lot of Gemara here. No uncircumcised man may eat of it. This comes to include one whose older brothers died as a result of circumcision. Meaning he's not circumcised as a defiance to God. Or it's just he's medically has to wait till he gets older. So still we say and he's not a stranger. So even though he's allowed to prolong his circumcision because he doesn't want to die, he's a delicate kid. Okay, Memtes. One law shall be to the native Jew and the ger and the convert that dwells among you. Terachas, this equates the ger, the convert, with the native Jew regarding all the mitzvahs in Torah as well. He used the word Torah. The first source. I mean, there's many other. Nun, Vayas, the children of Israel did so. As God commanded Moshe and Aaron. And it was the very day Hashem took out the children of Israel from Egypt with all their groups. And tomorrow, you'll read about the first opening of the womb.